Tuple is used to store multiple data in single variable, and tuple is a collection which is ordered and it remain unchanged. Like in tuple, you don't change whatever you store in tuple, unlike list that you can modify. And then also in tuple, you write tuple with the current as in brackets or parentheses. And like what we say, tuple are ordered. What I mean by ordered is that tuple have to be in order. It means that the item in the tuple have a defined order and you don't change it. So it have a defined order and you don't change it. Then tuple has also index as well, just like we index list. And the same way that the first index of list is 0, the second is 1. That's the same way tuple happens. Tuple are also unchangeable, like it means that you can't change tuple. Once you add a value or once you add an item inside tuple, once it is created, you can't change it again. What I mean is, if you look at what we did here, if you want to add something here, you can append, but in tuple, you don't add something once you create it. You can't change it, you can't modify it. And another thing tuple does is that tuple allow duplicate, like the way you can put 25, 25, just like we're using nulu nulu. Tuple allow it, but once you create this list, you don't change it again. Now, if you look at the first thing we use in creating the groups, the reason why it will allow you to put another person is because it is in list. But once it is tuple, it doesn't happen. So you just need to note that one, tuple uh, is ordered, tuple is unchangeable, and tuple allow duplicate. So and to create tuple is still the same way we worked on lists. That is the same way we create tuple. But the only difference in tuple is that when you are putting up tuple, it is a key that the system automatically recognizes. Then what need to change on the tuple is called, that is from square bracket to a parenthesis. So that is just what need to change in tuple, which you can see here. Um, which you can see here. So once you create a tuple, what changes is those values that I told you now. That's what makes it unique. So as it is now, once you change it to a double bracket, like open bracket and close bracket, not a square bracket, parenthesis, it automatically become tuple. So this is the way you can access. This is how the way tuple works. One, it is ordered. Two, it is unchangeable. Three, it allows duplicate. Now remember when we talked about lists a bit, I think I can get this quickly. But you remember when we talked about list, I will mention the same features but in another way. So those things are things you need to note to know what are you storing the data for, or what is the data being stored for, why are you storing data in that format. So you should just need to know that, because this allow you can change. Once you create, you can change, but tuple doesn't allow that. As you see here, it's automatically tuple. That is why if you check type, just like we say we used to do, if you check type bed beginners and run this code, you should see that it is now a tuple here. You can see this. But before, when it was a square bracket, you should put the same thing. If it is a square bracket and run the same code again, you will see that it is going to tell you that the type is list. So automatically the system or the built-in function recognize that. So you need to note that. And one of the reasons why I tell us the property is that there are data you don't store. There are data you can store at least as list, but you can't store it as tuple based on the properties. So you need to know those properties to know when you need to put the data in a particular format or when you need to store your data in the other format. So to create a tuple, it is just done that way. We just use the brackets and then it is being created. Now, the same thing we talked about, that was why I said the most important aspect of our class is the aspect of list, because list covered most of the things we are going to do. So the same way you access tuple list, that is the same way you also access tuple. So tuple allows you to access the length of the tuple, which is 0, as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So which is the same thing we did in the other one. And like I said, once the tuple is created, you can't modify it. So I've given example how you can access the tuple and how you know the type of data it is. So once you create it and there is open and close bracket, it automatically recognizes it as a tuple. So this is just what you need to note. And another aspect I want to talk about is that tuple gives you opportunity to keep the same way we have the data here as numerical and as the same way we have data as numerical, we can also have the same data both in numerical, that is integer, and you can also have it as a string. So if you look at this, it means if I run print of beginners underscore numbers, so it's going to pick it up and then it's going to recognize it as, if I run it now, it's going to work because it is a tuple, and because of this it automatically recognizes as a tuple. You also use type to note it. Now in I've talked about type, how you can know the type. Just put type the way we were talking about and you know the type. So on a quick one, I want to talk about the constructor, tuple constructor. A tuple constructor, you use it to make multiple constructive tuple. Now this is where you need to like pay a small bit attention. What do I mean? In this, you to make a method, use the tuple method to make a tuple. So all you need to do is, if you want to do a constructor, which it means you need to put multiple brackets. Now what do I mean? I mean that if I paste this, and if I decide to add something there inside, I can add 2, comma, I can add false, comma, and then I can also add that is 4, false, comma. I can also add a number, and I can do this, comma, like this. And if I say print this, and I say beginner, and I run the same code, now you see that it is going to bring this in this format. Now the constructor, what you just need to know is that you need to make this particular this thing in brackets. Now when you're talking about constructor, so it have to be in brackets. So it's actually allows, this is the method which allows you put it up here. Now what is the difference? The difference is that, let me copy this, let me paste this, remove the begin, remove the end, probably add 1 to it, then I'm going to print beginners 1, and I run the code. Now you have this, both the output of this, the same thing will have this, but it is you, if you want to use top to make a constructor, so you just need to put the double bracket. But if you look here, see there is nothing like change here. You put it like each individual of them, the same thing we have, the same thing we had. So if you want to look at constructor, it works this way. So all you just need to note that there is a double bracket. So just like the, what I want to differentiate is the way we did constructor in list, and I also want to show you how this works in top. So and also the same way we access item in the in tuple in list, that is the same way we access item here. Assuming I want to print the same thing, you just need to put the beginners and use the same way to access here. It comes in here, and if you put one around this code, you should be able to have Pablo. It's the same principle. This is the universal indexing method. This, because if I put this now, you ask me why am I using list here? Because it's the universal way of making range. That is, if you are talking about indexing, this is how you make it work. Now, if you want to check if an item or a particular thing exists in the list, sorry, in the tuple, we still use the same way we use in the same way we use it in while we're working on list, which is using if you use if, and if you want to check if Pablo exists, so it's still the same principle we use in list. That was why I said the most important class we need to pay attention is the action of list, because once you understand that list, all you just need to do is to make the application. Now, if you run this code, you are going to have an error because indentation error, because this does not match where it's supposed to be. So it ought to be have a space in between them as indentation, and this is the way it works. If you want to check if Nulu is in here, you use the same method. If Pablo is in here, you now see print yes. It's here. Now, if you run the same code now, because Pablo is there, you're going to have yes, it is there. But if I put something like 2 here and run the code, it's not going to print anything because I didn't define s inside it. Remember, if you want it to run, have the opposite, you need to put s. If it is not there, then print anything you want to print. I am not here. So this is just the same way you're going to, because Pablo 2 is not there, so it is showing I am not here. So it is still the same principle we use, and also it is the same principle we are going to use here in this. That is the same thing we're using here. Now I want to quickly talk about updates because it happened different from what we know. Now, if you want to make an update in the tuple, if you want to make up change tuple value, remember what I said in the beginning, that tuple does not allow is unchangeable. But when you want to like make change, once you create a tuple, you cannot modify the value inside it. So tuple are unchangeable or immutable. So that is what we call it. So but if you want to still change something, there is a way you're going to change something inside it. And the best way you can change something in tuple, for example, let me copy this and make it like, let me copy this and put it up here. Let me just make it like X, for example, and I have this in tuple. And if I want to change something inside the tuple, I could actually make this as Y. And why making it as Y? I need to use a keyword which is list. To use the keyword list, automatically it will recognize that what you are trying to do is built-in function sequence. You can see here, no argument is given or for constructive or empty list. So I am trying to make changes on it. So what you need to do is that you go back to the Y and then use the list, because you have used list in front of it. And let's say I use 1, then and I want to change something inside here, I can decide to write my name here. Remember, I said it's unchangeable, but this is the way you can gradually make it work. Now, because X now, you're going to say that the X is going to be tuple of Y. If you make it a tuple of Y, and if you print X now, automatically, it is going to make those changes. So let me print the X now, run the code. You will see that it is going to make changes on it, and it is going to change Pablo. The reason is because here, I define when this is a tuple. Like I said, if you remember what I said in the beginning, you can't change tuple once you created it. But what I did was that here, I automatically call this particular X as list. remember when we're changing string, if you remember what I said if you have an integer, you can convert it to string by using this. If you have a string, you can convert it to integer by using this, by putting it up here and put it inside the bracket. That is the same principle that I used here. When I have this as a list, as a tuple, so I now call it list. You can see here I say y is equals to list of this. Automatically it will return back to list. Now what did I do? Y, I now access the value which is 1. I want to replace 1 with this. Then I still return back again and call it tuple y. That means I change it to list. After telling what I want to change, I return it back to tuple again and I continue to print. So this is the way you can change, you can actually update tuple. Without this way, there is no way you can make this possible again. So this is the simple way you can update tuple. Change it to list, return it back to tuple, and then print it. This is the way you can update a list, a tuple. Now I'm going back again. The way you can add item, this is updates. Now if you want to add item to this, how do you add item to this? See the same principle. Call the list, convert it to list, but in this one you are going to use like what we said. If you want to add something to something, you use append function, which is append we are going to use here. But now you are going to say append Kingsley into it in this format. So I am adding something to it, I'm not updating. Then the next thing I need to do is to return it to tuple, and then I should be able to make print on it. So with this, I will append something to here. But all things being equal, you don't append. If you look at the list we treated, the way we append, it is not like what we are doing now. Because list, you can just use append and it will automatically understand that, oh, I am trying to make append to it. You can see here, straight, insert, append here. You see dot dot. If you make this dot bed, it will work. But since, look at this, let me give you an example of what I'm saying. I will revert this code back. If you look at this, this is now a tuple, and you say append this. You see now, if you run this particular code now, it will tell you that tuple has no attribute append. This is what I'm saying. You can't, because of this bracket, you can't append something to tuple. It won't work because I said in the beginning, remember these key values, ordered, unchanged, and you can't update. This is what you need to note in 3 things we are going to be talking about: dictionary, set, list, and tuple. You note these things and understand the differences between them. Now you see I use append here because it is this thing, it can't work. But if I remove it now and put it back to list, I should be able to append, because you can change list after you create it. If I run this code now, it won't tell me that there is an error because it automatically knows it's a list because of this square bracket. Now it is not going to fail now because I have appended this, so it have no reason to fail. Okay, yeah, it has a reason to fail because I need to remove this last thing. So it have no reason to fail. Now it is going to come out because it accepts append. But if you do the same thing on tuple remain unchanged. So what I did here was that I converted it to list and then return it back to tuple, and then that's how I'm able to print it. So this is how you can add item. You can add something to list, to tuple, sorry. So you can make those modifications, and another way you can make this such modification is by adding it to it. Now what do I mean by adding something to it? I'm going to copy this code again, and then I'm going to paste it. And then on pasting it, what I need to do is that I need to say, call that, let me say y is equal to, let me use my name, then I'll put here, and I'm going to say it is Chika. Now when I now put it up here, the next thing I don't need to do, I don't need to append again, because I've declared that what y is, and I want to also put what Chika is, which is x and y. The next thing I could do is I will say x is equal to plus equal to, and then I will now can now go ahead and print the X, because remember when I told us operator, this is here, it says can only concatenate strings, because this is not a strings, because it can only concatenate strings. So I want to add this to this, so it is having a value of numerical. So I need to make a change on it. So I can paste this, and then I will replace this with Y beg. So let me put up this here. Okay. Let me return this. I think it will be faster like this. And let me put that this as Q, and I'll run the code. No, put this as X and change this first one as Q and run the code. This everything here is strings. It says it can only concatenate this. So it can only concatenate strings. So it can't. Okay, sorry. Can only concatenate tuple, not strings to tuple. So in this way, when you are creating this, you need to note that something missing here. Sorry. Yeah, something was missing here. When you have this kind of value here, this is going to come up because you need to know that this particular bracket here, anything you put up here, that is the only way that possible for it to concatenate. If you remove this from it and run it, it is not going to be possible because it can only concatenate strings, and this strings is a strings, not strings. Can only concatenate tuple, not strings. So as it is now, this is a strings, and it recognizes as a strings. The only way to change it from what it is as a strings to tuple is by putting a comma up here. Now, on this case, if you remove these things, which was what I wanted to do, and replace it with Q, which is the first code, and run the same code, this is going to append it now to this other one. You see, you have checker here, and you can see the length of our distance down to Ruru and the stuff. So we have the beginning Nulu, and it goes down to Ruru here, and it started again, continued this way down to Collins. This is 56 and goes to Collins, go to Sterling, and return back to. So you can see this one strings, and this is P because it appended up like this. So if you put up this aspect of X, Y, sorry, which is checker that I'm interested in, and with this, it will be able to append it to it. So this is only happen in tuple. So if you leave it like a strings, it is not going to be possible because it can only concatenate tuple, not strings to tuple. So what you need to note here is that when you have this kind of issue, without this bracket here, it is not going to work for any reason, because you cannot concatenate that except it is. Now, the second to the last, before we now move to another aspect, is that down here, how do you remove something from tuple? If you want to remove an item from tuple, so you still use the same keyword we use in list. That is why I said list is something you really need to understand. It's very, very important for you to understand list, because once you understand list, you can do the rest of other things you need to do. Yes, because it is also like applying the same this thing. So to remove something, remember when we now have to call the whole this thing as list. So you need to do the same thing. Call it list using the list keyword. Once you call it as list, you can now make modification on it by still saying the y.remove. First, what am I doing? I converted it to list, which is the first thing I did, and I want to remove null. So I can now go ahead and remove null. using this, and then I will return it back to, after putting it like this, I need to return it back to tuple before printing. How do I return it back? I'll call X and then I will call it tuple. Remember the last thing we did? I'll call it Y. With this, the same thing we did when we append, that's the same thing we did here. So I have removed node, the first node here. That's the same thing we did here. Once you declare it, this is the same code, but the difference is that we are now removing. There we appended, now we are removing. Remember, first make the whole X as a list. Second, remove what you want to remove because it is a list, but from here it is now a list. Now return this thing back to tuple and then print the tuple. So this is the way you can do the same thing. Then another way you can remove something is using a delete keyword, which we treated in list. I will still be saying refer back to the list you worked on, because that is the only way you can understand all these ones. So you still use the delete keyword and then say delete X, and then when you delete X, this is going to raise an error like we talked about last time, because there is nothing again inside here. It's going to be an error because X is not defined. The delete key have deleted everything here, but by this you go or this, the keyword pop is not defined. Remember we talked about pop. Remember, unchangeable, that's what I'm talking about. So if you use delete keyword, automatically it's going to throw an error because there is no, you have deleted everything, and when you want to print, you can see that it is not defined. So this is just what I want you to know. Now another thing I want you to know again before we proceed, I'm going to copy the code. I'm going down here, and then when you want to, let's talk about how you can unpack. Remember when we talk about unpacking variable, we can also unpack the same thing here again. What do I mean? To unpack the same thing, put all of them in tuple. So you can say that you open up a tuple here and you say, let's say, let me use again b1. Let me start with b0, comma b. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So you can have all this according to the number. B0, you say B, you say B1, you do comma again, you say B2, you do comma, you say B3. Now remember what we did then. So what it means is when you finish, you can assign the whole this thing to the same thing we use, which is X. Now with this, you can access to say print B0. Now the B0, it will go in there to access the particular tuple in here. Like for example, we have null, it's going automatically to print the same null. So what happened with this is because I didn't finish declaring what I need to declare, because this is B3, then this is B4, this is B5, this is B6, this is B7, this is B8, this is B9, this is B10, this is B11. So it's supposed to be 12 items there. This should automatically equate it. Yeah, so this is how you can access it. If I want to print Lulu, it's B0. Remember what we did when we do unpack. Whatever that is here should be equal to what is here. If I want to print B11, that means I want to print Lulu. So I can run this. The Lulu is going to come out because that is B11. So this is how you can access item inside here. Now another thing I want us to talk about quickly was using asterisks. Now you have all these inside here, and you want to use asterisk method, which is, remember, okay, it's not you, it was the advanced that I was intermediate that I was talking about using asterisk. But we're going to be talking about asterisk soon, because we are going to be assigning the rest to it. So what do I mean? I want to stop at here, and I want to assign asterisk to the last one I'm going to add. So I'm going to put it up here, and then going to put asterisk on it. What it means is that if I run this particular code, it means that if I want to print B4, let me go to B4 and run the same code. It means that I'm saying it print everything from 4 to the end. By putting asterisk here, it automatically understands that once I call it, it's going to print from 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The first one is 0, 1, 2, 3. You see now 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I say from B4, print everything. With asterisk, it means print everything from B4 to the end. So if I want to print, if I only want to put asterisk on the 0 here, I can put asterisk on 0 here. It means if I run this code, it means that I'm trying to tell it that it's going to print everything that is from 0 to the end. So it means I am going to have two printing. If I run this, sorry, I made a mistake. Let me correct the mistake here. I need to put the asterisk here, for example. Now when I run it, it's accessing rural only. But now you see now, because I put asterisk here and 4, it is going to space euro, collect euro, arrange it one by one, because there is B4 here, which is what I call in here. Rural is the last distance here. So what it means is, once you put asterisk in the tuple to the last things you number you put up here, and you run the code, it's going to print whatever you have here to the end. By just calling that particular, it's going to print what you have to the end. So you see you have first from here, it printed everything you have here to the end. So what do I mean? If you want to print 1 to 3, you can just put here, you paste. So if I change this into 0 and change it this, make it 0 and run the same code, sorry, you're going to have run the same code here. You're going to have everything from B4 to the end, and the first one 0, which is null. You're going to have this to the end and then null. So this is how you can get to assign, get the rest of order, the list inside there. And if you want to create, this is what exactly what you're going to do. Now if you notice this, it is putting it individually. But what if I remove this and just call it B4? It is now going to put all of them in a list. Note this, it is now a list. Because of this, I removed it. But when I put the star here, it is going to make it independent. Look at the result I'm going to have. I'm not going to have it inside the list. As you see, square bracket. It's going to be independently. So when it comes up, it's going to come out independent. So adding the asterisk, what if you add the asterisk to other value and then still have the other value? What are you going to get? What do I mean? Adding a value asterisk to other value is, you have 3 here. I want to add it on 3 and remove it from 2, 4 and put it here, and then run the code now. Sorry, it's going to have here rural. I want to put it in 3. When I run the code now, what does it mean? You have from here, you have true, false. Now you see here we have true, which is 3. It printed from here to Victor, but it didn't print rural. It printed from here to Victor and it stopped at rural. Now why? Because if I put 4 here, it means I am going to have from true to rural. The reason is this: because I put another value behind here, it automatically recognizes I mean the last one. If I put B5 here, for example, now it will recognize that there are 2 items right behind printing all. Look at what is going to happen. I put B5 here. This is rural B4. Now when I print, I put 5 here. It picked Victor as 4. Do you see what happened here? 4 now picked Victor because it have recognized I have put something behind here. If I want to print the last one, I can actually say print B and then I will put B5 now. It is now going to show you the row which is the last here. So what it means is that because I put star here, it's going to print everything from here and stop at where this value is. So automatically it will recognize that the last value stands for row, second to last stands for Victor. So it is going to print from really right to where it started. So this is how what happened when you put up this kind of this way, so you can print and access item wherever they are. Now for the same way you print, like I use using for loops, it's still the same way. I will copy this same code and then I'll paste it, and here I'm going to change this and say if x in x, then that I want it to print x. So let me put it up here. Now this is the same way we access our loop. Remember the way we access our loop. We have for x in x, for x in x, let me change it into beginners. For x in beginners, so still print the same thing. The same way we access our items in list, that's the same way we can access item in list. This is beginners down to here. If, sorry, I made a mistake here, it's not if. For x, I'm saying for x and I'm not writing it. So for x in beginners, it's supposed to print everything that is here. So this is the same way we printed it in our list. So if you also want to loop through numbers, like through looping using for, you can still use the same way we did. You go down here, I copy the same code and I paste it, and it's still to say for I or x in range. Remember what we did last time in list, and that's why I will say if you don't understand lists, you're going to be floating on this generally. So you close it up with the bracket we have here, and now you can now access whatever we have inside here, which is you're going to print the beginners, and you remember your list, and since we use x inside here, we use x again and we run it. So you're going to loop. This is how we are going to get through this, and I think we have understand this particular aspect here because we talked about it last time in lists. This the same range, the length, print according to the length. That's why you see no loop to the end of it. So this is how you can use the same thing. Now the aspect of using while loop, so you can loop through a tuple using while loop, and then you can also use the length function to determine which length you want it to be. Then you can now be making increase or decrease depending on the same thing we did while we were using the same way we use while we're using list. Like I said, it is necessary and paramount to know about lists because that is where we spend time and treat everything, because we want to make sure you understand it and apply it to the rest of other uh, arrays that we're going to be talking about. So the same thing I said last time, using this, you step it at 0 and you still say while. Remember, while is a built-in function. Once you use a while, the system automatically understands that, because that is while I is less than, we talked about this, the length of the beginners, which is what we are talking about. Then so the length of beginners, go to the end of it the same way we wrote our code in the other one in the list. That's the same way it's going to be. Then you can now say that you are going to print the beginners, which is this. You access the listing with the list, so we are using I just want to make sure we replicate what we did last time. And then what do you need to do again now? Because it is here, say I is equal to, remember what we said, you add y. If you want to get it one after the other, you now add one here. So once you run this code, it's going to pick it one by one. which is nulu. Nulu is going to run till infinite because we didn't get it right. So remember the beginner here 0, while I is less, that is the length of beginners. Then print the beginners 1, then length 1, then you add 1 to it. So it's going to run through the first one. So you put it on 0, and then you see the same issue. We have no need to keep forever, so it's going to run infinitely, just like we talked about last time. I think we understand what we mean here, except if you're having an issue. If you're not having an issue, it's still the same thing we talked about last time. So this is just the simple way. You put it up 1, I is 1 equals to this. Now the reason why it is running infinite loops is because of the indentation error that I have. So if I put it 1 here, it's supposed to like only pick this particular length of this and stop. But because I put it here, that was why it was running forever, because it read this, it pick up this and come down here, because this is, remember what we talked about the indentation last time. So this is just it. And now the next thing we just need to talk about quickly is how do you join a tuple. So to join tuple, you copy, I'm going to copy this code again, and then I'm going to paste it, and I'm going now to make another tuple, which I'm going to name 1, and I'm going to say open bracket, I'll say 1, I'll say comma 2, I'll say comma 3, then let me stop here. And then for me to join this, I can say that beginner 2 is equal to beginner 1, that is beginner itself, plus the same way we do this, you can say beginner 1. Now with this, you can now print beginner 2, that is which you declared last. And if you run this code, you are going to join the 2 of them together. So this is how you can join a tuple, by adding 2 tuples. Is that okay? So this is how you can add.
Yeah, the same thing with me.
What did you say? I can't hear you, please.
I feel like breaking. The video is cracking like the network. I think the network is breaking.
Okay, sorry about that.
You're breaking.
Yeah. So this is how you can add. You can actually join tuple. You have 2 tuple. With this method, you can add your tuple. So another thing we just need quickly to talk about is how you can multiply tuple. So in multiplying tuple, you can take a tuple and multiply it into 2. What do I mean? Let me just use this particular short one as a practical example. I'm going to paste this, and when I paste this, I've declared it as this thing. So I can actually choose to multiply it into 2. How do I multiply? Okay, let me copy this one. This will be better explaining what I'm saying. So I'll paste this, and when I paste this, so if I want to form another one, I can say beginner 1. This I want to multiply it. I can say that the first one, which is beginning now, and I want to multiply it by 2, like this. So if I print the beginner 1, which is printing the beginner 1, which I have modified, or I'm looking at multiplying. If I run this code, what is happening here? Trying to reconnect. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
All right, you see here,
Yeah.
this I've multiplied this into 2. This is how you can multiply a tuple into 2, and you can see up what I did here by just putting the multiplication, and this gives me this into 2. This is how you can multiply it into 2. And then if you want to count the tuple, you still use the same way we talked about. You can count it like this. I'll copy this up, and then I'll paste this, and then if I want to count whatever that is there, I can actually say x is equal to, and then I will say the beginner. We didn't talk about count, but we're supposed to talk about it, but we didn't talk about it anyway. Yes, because we didn't later finish up. So there are two things you can do. You can count, or you can index. So in this one, the first one I want to do is I want to count, and if I go ahead now and print x, and I'll run this code, then I should be able to have 1. So this is where you can remove this and run it like empty, that is x now, because x is equal to beginner, that is, so it just takes exactly one argument. So you need to replace it with 1, and then sorry, and if you run this, this is actually used to return how many times you specify a particular tuple. What do I mean? 1 Pablo come into how many times? Into 1 time. How many times will Lulu come? Lulu comes as positions of 1, so you are counting each of them, how many times it's returned. So count majorly return the numbers of times a specified value occur in a tuple. How many times a specified value occur in a tuple. So this is the same way if you want to also index it. Like I said, there are two things you can do in method. Either you count or you index. And when it comes to indexing, it's still the same thing. Let me index 3, and let me run the code. It says tuple index x. X is not in tuple. Tuple index x. X is not in tuple. Beginner is equal to this. And let me copy this code. Okay, indexing 3. There is no x in the 3. Then if I index 1, then how many times use 1 indexing? This is supposed not to fail. Okay, 1 is in the index of 0. So I actually made a mistake anyway. The method have to be this is what I mean. Indexing is the way you can index. Number 1 is the index of 0. But if I use 2, for example, this is 2, and we have this number here. 2 is index of 1 here, then 5 is index of 4. Five is in the index of 4. Is no 5 is index of 3, that is 1 0 1 2 3 in indexing. So when it comes to count, it ought to work using the same principle here. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm also going to replace this with this, and this is 3. This is 3 here. So if it is counting, if you want to count 0, there is no 0 in here. This is 5. So if I put up 5 here, I want to know the index of 5 in the tuple, then I can get this. Then when it comes to 0, there is no 0 here. How many 0 do we have here? But if you check for 2, how many 2 do you have here? You should have about there 2 here. Then how many 5 do we have here? There is going to be a 1 5 here, because there is only 1 5 here. So this is the way you can, this is a method we are talking about when you are talking about tuple method. Either you count or you index. So this is where I am going to stop it for tuple. Every other things we need to know tuple should come. Maybe we need to look at what you have in list and then trying one or two things. But generally, all we need to do tuple is gone, because these are just few things we need to know about tuple, and then you apply the knowledge you have in list to it. But like I said, remember those key things. Tuple is unchangeable, except this way we modulate it. This is the only way you can make modification on it, except that there is no other way you can make modification on it again. So this is how tuples work. And if you have any question now, you can quickly ask me. I think if we have time, we will finish up where we stop in this, but I think that is not necessary again. If we're able to get all we need to talk, we talked about in the list and apply it here, it's not going to be a problem. So all I wanted to talk about is reverse, but I think we can get that from what we did earlier. So this is everything we need to know about tuple. The first thing is that tuple is used to store multiple data in a single variable. The second thing is that tuple is a collection which stores data and is ordered, and it cannot be changed except the way we change it up. And tuple uses double brackets. Then, like I said, in ordered, it goes in a particular format. In unchangeable, you can't change, you can't add, except those way we convert it to list and return it back to tuple. In duplicate, since it is indexed, so it can allow duplicates. That is the reason why when we use count here, it will allow us to use count. When we use two method, the method of indexing account, you see we have two here, and it counted. If you look here in count, in index, let me use count first. If I put up 2 here and run the code, it is going to tell me count how many 2 that is here as number 1 and 2, because it can allow duplicates. But in the other one, it is not the same thing. Is that okay? Do you have any question you need to ask me? You can ask me now. This is, you can see here, is 2. It's 2 times. This is list, and let me change it back to tuple like it was. I still count it as 2. So you just need to note this. Know that it allows duplicates. Tuple allows duplicates. Tuple is unchangeable and tuple is ordered. So this is just what I want you to note. And then in list, just know go through. That was why I said list takes us time. It takes us 2 days, and we didn't even finish it up in the 2 days that we were supposed to finish, because like I said, it's very, very important, and you just need to know that lists is changeable. It allows duplicates, and list is ordered. Now, if the difference between lists and tuple now is tuple is unchangeable while list is changeable. Both allow duplicates and both are ordered. So you have to note this. In dictionary, we're also going to talk about that, and in set, we're also going to talk about it. So once we are done with these two, the way we can store our data, then we can proceed to something like inheritance, object class, morphology, and the rest of them. So this is where we are going to stop now.